Be inspired, supported, and empowered. This is the Global Healthy Living Foundation podcast network.
Hello, and welcome to Thriving While Aching, a podcast that inspires and offers insights on how to live a fuller life while navigating the challenges of pain. Last season, we went deeply into the journeys of adults who are finding joy and purpose while continuing to live with the inevitable aches of aging. This season, we turn the spotlight onto the unsung heroes of many of those stories, the caregivers and care partners who empower their loved ones to thrive, whether that's through nature escapades, preserving cherished family memories, or expressing themselves in art or music. And this season, Mike Eidsaune will be here to reflect, share from his wealth of experience, and offer invaluable advice. So, whether you're a caregiver or know someone who is, this season is for you. Let's dive in. Today, we are joined by an incredibly resilient guest who, amidst life's challenges, has shown the profound importance of staying active, connected, and ever curious. From Salt Lake City, Utah, I would like to welcome the inspiring Marilyn. Her journey of caregiving, adaptation, and continued zest for life promises to offer insights and lessons for all of us. Hi, Marilyn.
Hello, Lori. Nice to meet you.
It's great to be with you. So, Marilyn, I've been so looking forward to meeting you and having this conversation. So just so our listeners know a little bit about you, where are you located? And tell us just a little bit about yourself.
Well, we live in Salt Lake City, Utah. I have lived here since 1978. I was raised in Missouri, went to the University of Missouri, and became a teacher. Moved here with my first husband, who was a geologist, and raised our children. And then he died of his first heart attack when they were both in college. So I remained here because I was teaching at Salt Lake Community College by then. I taught English composition, and I stayed here in Utah and then met my current husband, Joel. We met on a canoe trip amongst mutual friends, a week-long canoe trip. So we were married then several years later, and he is the one dealing with all of this arthritic pain now.
Mm-hmm. And what a shift that must be. I just love you met on a canoe trip. It's a sort of a signature of your relationship, it feels like, is being active and being out. And now he's had a lot of pain and a lot of difficulty, and you've both had to make big shifts.
That is the major difference in our lives, is we're not out canoeing and hiking, cross-country skiing as we have been in the past, and we've always enjoyed that. So it's been a shifting of interest, what we could do to be active and also to be active physically, socially, mentally.
Oh, and those are the big three, Marilyn. Socially, mentally, physically. So tell me a little bit about what you do to stay active physically. We'll talk about all three of them, but let's start with, what do you do to stay active physically?
Well, at this time, Joel is most comfortable bicycling. It's non-weight bearing, and we'll talk about his issues with ankle, knee, and hip and back. And I broke my hip a year and a half ago. So going back to biking has been the easiest physical activity. So we try to do that 2 or 3 times a week along a fairly level path along the Jordan River. So we're in nature, but enjoying the exercise as well.
That's just inspiring that you get out and on a bike, even with pain, because it sounds like both of you are dealing with pain.
Well, yes, mine is much better now. His is not. So Joel will tell me when he's ready to turn around.
Mm-hmm. So you pace yourself, but you do get out and do things.
Right, we do. It's not a race, it's a ride.
It's a ride. That's a great framing. Not a race, but a ride.
And then twice a week, at some point in the winter, we signed up with a sports trainer. So we go together twice a week. And she has some experience with aging, with elderly. So she has been very good about having us move all parts of our body as much as possible.
So part of getting physical is also getting some support and someone knowledgeable to help with what you can do and where you should be careful. As we age, the risk of injury can increase when we exercise. So it's always important to seek out professional support to adapt to these new challenges to our routines. I want to welcome Mike Eidsaune to our podcast. Mike is the CEO of caregiving.com. That's a platform aiming at creating better care experiences for family caregivers and their communities. With over 11 years of experience as a caregiver advocate, Mike has developed a deep understanding of the challenges and opportunities in the caregiving industry. Mike will be with us this season to provide his expert insight and deeper support for caregivers and their loved ones as they navigate their journey. In each episode, we'll also have a discussion with Mike to discuss our learnings and takeaways from each episode. So, Mike, you've been listening to Marilyn's discussion so far, and Marilyn was just telling us that she and Joel started working out with a sports trainer. I wonder if you'd be willing to share some insights about the importance of finding activities that both people in the caregiver relationship can participate in and enjoy together.
Yeah, absolutely, Lori. I think that for family caregivers, the first step is really coming to terms or coming to grips with the situation. Once we understand what our limitations are, what the situation is, whether it be the condition or the living situation or our ADLs and the limitations we have there, then we can start to think creatively about, okay, how do we move forward? Marilyn talks a lot about that, like the ride. And I think understanding that, you can tell that she's got a good grasp on not only what her challenges are and her husband's challenges are, but, what they're going to need to do in order to continue to move forward instead of just being stuck. And so for them, coming up with this opportunity of engaging with a physical trainer was a great way for them to continue to do the things that they really like to do, the things that, kept them connected for all these years, parts of their identity, and really to translate that to the next phase of their life by bringing someone in that can help them continue to try to do the things that, they love so much and they love about each other. I think that's really, really important, and I think it's really, really healthy. And I think for a lot of folks, I think you mentioned to me in a prior discussion we had, this loss of identity and this loss of self. That can be really, really traumatic, not just for the patient or the person who's dealing with the chronic condition, but also the caregiver. How do they deal with that loss of identity? How do they support a person who's going through that transition or loss of identity? That can be a really challenging thing. And Marilyn is doing, I think, a really good job. Her and her husband are both doing a really good job, I think, of that transition. And it's just going to be important that they continue to talk about it, share the frustrations, show empathy to one another so that they can continue to, again, think creatively, think outside of the box on ways they can continue to engage and live life to its fullest.
Thanks, Mike. Yeah, I think that one of the things that they've done here, getting a specific kind of attention with a sports trainer so that they can keep moving, also really helps support, all the changes and transitions that take a toll mentally as well. So what we're going to talk about next, Marilyn, I think, is what keeps you going mentally, because that's another very important aspect of caregiving as you take care of yourself and as you're a caregiver for your husband.
Well, I think the fact that we can talk about anything, we can communicate about anything, we don't always agree. We might have to back off and come back. But Joel has a wonderful sense of humor, very intelligent, and we're both curious people. We both love to read, watch movies and TV series, and discuss them as well. So I think that really helps.
Oh, the humor and the sort of staying active mentally, but also tell me a little bit more about your curiosity. How does that help you?
Well, it helps us because we are not specialists. We're more generalists, like being interested in so many different things. We both read the New Yorker every week, and then we'll discuss our favorite articles together. I'm in 2 book clubs. Joel is not. He's a better, deeper reader than I am, so he remembers everything. I'm a fast skim through it sometimes. So, we have our differences, but we can share and be delighted by those. And I have learned so much from his patience with his pain and his acceptance of it and hoping for a better future. So just his attitude during what has happened since arthritis started to bother him 3 or 4 years ago with some issues he already had, but the arthritis made them too painful for activity. He can only walk or stand for about 15 minutes time periods.
And that's such an incredible change for a person who was so active as he was.
Very active. Not only that, he was a former mountain climber, so he has wonderful memories, but he's hoping to get back now to the walking so we can hike together and cross-country ski in the winter.
But you're really underlying, I think, one of the biggest things, which is, what a difference an attitude makes. And you're talking about sort of some hopefulness for the future and, staying active and interested in the world and doing what you can and believing that'll help you do more. It sounds like that attitude gratitude really sustains you.
So, each day is a different day. We have been doing a lot of car sightseeing that we wouldn't have otherwise. For example, we took a 99-year-old friend of ours on a mural tour. So Salt Lake City has about 45 murals on buildings downtown, and they're in sort of not an enclosed area, but not much distance, so we could stop, admire, talk about them, and just have fun with that. So I'm a constant reader, so I'm always reading what are current events or what are opportunities around town as well, especially the free ones. So that, of course, was a mural fest that we did not attend. We went on our own. I just got the map offline and we followed our own path. The same with the end of winter here. We had a really heavy winter. Would have been fabulous skiing. It was fabulous skiing for those who were. But we had a lot of avalanche danger, major road closures. So as soon as we could go up and see what that looked like, I think our interest in nature, and that gives us a sense of being outdoors. We could go up and talk about the changes, the contrast with before. And we've been up several times to see the developments in the canyons, even though we haven't been hiking.
Car sightseeing, maybe it's car hiking as well.
With our binoculars, we take our binoculars.
It's inspirational to think about the way you sort of track activities and then how you can do them so you stay involved. And you took a 99-year-old friend with you?
Yes, she's amazing. She's a really good role model. She has her walker, but hasn't lost anything up here. Very sharp.
Incredible.
So it does help us to think of what activity could she do occasionally every month or two, and then to do that with her.
And so is that part of how you stay socially active, thinking about having friends like this?
Part of it, part of that. And then when Joel and I met, we were with 10 other people. I knew all of them except for him and his friend. He had been hiked with them in the past, but I had been more recently with him. So we met amongst friends, and we are still very close to that group of friends. So we get together for dinner. We actually took our canoe out on the lake, about 2 weeks ago. And so it was very mild. It was calm water to the picnic area. And then the 10 of us, we all had a picnic, and then we canoed back to our cars. So it wasn't our week-long expeditions that we formerly did together, but it's something. So we're trying to keep it going. And we are going to Island Park, which is south of Yellowstone. We have a plan to go with those same people. 2 of them have moved to Port Townsend, Washington. 2 have moved to southern Utah, but they'll be joining us where we'll stay 3 or 4 days and everyone fixes food, and it has some hiking possibilities. I know Joel wants to be hiking there, and also there are some bicycling in the area. So instead of canoeing, which for 10 years we did Thanksgiving canoe trips, someone would bring a grill and we'd have turkey, and then everyone brought everything else, and we would canoe and then have a layover day where we had a big turkey dinner.
Marilyn, one of the things that's so inspiring to me is how you and Joel have had such a full life. And yet at this point where you've had to make so many changes, you're focusing on what you can do, not what you can't do or used to do.
And I think we had some good role models. My 99-year-old friend originated a bike ride here for all women. And so she's been an inspiration that way. Well, his wife died last year, but the man, he's also about 98, 99. He still walks every day. He may be kind of hunched over, but he walks every day. And in the past, we have done outdoor activities with him, cross-country skiing, at his pace. But I think the fact that we've been able to have friends of different ages, younger, older, has really helped.
Wow, Marilyn, those are some amazing models. And I really appreciate what you've shared about how you've been learning to shift with Joel and learning his new boundaries, because that seems to be a very important lesson to be that kind of supportive care partner. Mike, what are your thoughts about that?
What I hear, when I'm listening to the discussion, I'm hearing the importance of community, really. I think Marilyn being able to reach out and find inspiration within her own group of friends or community is critical. And I think it tackles so many of the challenges we see in caregivers today, the idea of isolation, feeling like you're alone on an island, the only person dealing with the situation that you're in and the challenges you have. That can be a crippling thing for a lot of caregivers. So, going out, finding inspiration in the community, finding others who are either dealing with with a similar problem or have a similar challenge and watching them overcome it, that can be really, really empowering for family caregivers. So that engagement in the community can be life altering. The other aspect is really just finding inspiration in things that maybe wouldn't have inspired you otherwise. Again, seeing it in the community is one thing, but then letting yourself be inspired by it and finding sort of those small little nuggets of inspiration in your everyday life and in your community and your group of friends, I think is really great. And then lastly, again, kudos here, this idea of being able to be creative, think outside the box, and look for things in your community and in your support system that can help you engage and stay engaged in what's going on and being active. The bike ride is a great example of this. It's really great to hear. And I think more and more, caregivers are turning to their communities to look for ways in which they can engage and stay engaged.
I really love your word inspired, Mike, because I think that it's that willingness to sort of accept where we are now and make the change to that acceptance and then see what inspires us and what's happening. So Marilyn, I want to get back to you and I want to get back to all the activities you've had with Joel. We've talked about all the outdoor activities because I know you're outside a lot. Are there activities that you enjoy at home as well?
Well, we do. We just entertained some neighbors. Saturday night, we had a dinner party here. Takes me much longer to get it organized, done, cleaned up, but it's worth it just to keep in touch, with different people as well.
Absolutely, yeah.
A big change for me is that my life seems busier because Joel, he's not able to do all the yard work he once did. Getting down on the ground and up and down and that kind of stuff I've been doing.
Yeah, that's another change that happens in this kind of situation where you have to take on some things you didn't do before. And how is that for you?
Well, it's easier this year than it was last year. Last year, getting up was a problem. I had to have extra stools and trees to hang on to and things like that. So, but become easier. We do have some tomatoes that are coming on now, so we're excited about that.
So gardening and working outside along with being outside is part of your lifestyle as well.
That's right. It's a preference, actually.
I do think there's something about being outside that much that also helps sustain the mental.
I do too. And then I actually do an activity weekly. I try to go to a water aerobics class 3 times a week, and I do that by myself. I'm up early in the morning. I leave. When I come back, then Joel and I have breakfast together. He usually fixes the breakfast, and we do that. So that has helped me have something else. And it's with a number of the women and the men are of different ages, but most of us have issues someplace in our bodies, knee replacements or shoulder problems or whatever.
But it feels like having something that's your activity where you really sort of just kind of be with yourself, again, with other people as well, but something you enjoy just.
Exactly, as much as I'd want to be. I want to get back to more hiking than walking. I haven't done that as much because it's easier to just go do an hour of exercise with the stretching and then come home and just do other things. But, I'll get back to it. I want to be able to walk more than an hour because to go any place in the high mountains here, you need to do that.
So again, you've got a goal. I think goals are part of thriving as well. Just, thinking, where do I want to be and how can I get there? Sounds like both you and Joel have some goals.
We do. And Joel is active in our homeowners association. He's on the board, and I'm active in the League of Women Voters. I have chosen not to chair a major part of it for several years, but I worked a teacher's event last Wednesday. Interesting things happen all the time. You just don't know how they'll play out.
And you have to pay attention. It sounds like you pay a lot of attention to what might show up for you and for Joel.
I do. I think maybe we're easily bored, so we do. Or we're just curious people too,
I think it's more about curiosity and wanting to stay very engaged. So this has been a delightful conversation. I've really enjoyed it, and I think you exemplify thriving while aching. It's been a privilege to hear about your life and to be inspired by all that you do.
Thank you, Laurie.
So, Mike, that was quite the interview.
Absolutely.
What are your key takeaways or learnings from Marilyn's care partner journey with Joel?
Yeah, one of the things that jumps out at me right away is just the importance of community for family caregivers, whether it's to find inspiration, like we discussed, or it's just for that sort of emotional support. that community for her has been obviously instrumental in keeping that positivity and that willingness to sort of continue moving forward and look for ways to adapt. Her being able to see it happen in real life with others has been instrumental. So, I think that's a really important one, that importance of community. What about you?
Well, I was struck over and over by the willingness to adapt. Not sort of stay in the way we've always been and then just be, sad or resentful that things are different, but that consistent ability to adapt to this and adapt to that. And I think being in community is part of that. All the relationships they've cultivated over the years that they keep up in so many ways.
Yeah, that willingness to evolve.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Super, super important. And, the idea of that loss of self, that the idea that their identity is very active, very engaged in sport and athletic pursuit, they didn't let that become crippling to them or a life stop or a big barrier. They embraced it, looked for ways to adapt and evolve, and just kept the train moving. That's fantastic. And I think community is a huge part of that. So that's great.
I think you noted in that community, their social connections, the friendships that they've had over the years, the way they've adapted some of those, but they've also kept them up in new ways and maybe even given those relationships more importance.
Yeah. The last one I'll sort of drop in there, and I think it's a continuation of both of those. It's the willingness to be inspired by little things, looking for those little drops of inspiration in, the 99-year-old that gets up and walks every day. I mean, she sort of jokingly said, it may be hunched over, but he's still doing it every day. Letting yourself be inspired by that type of stuff is more than enough to, refuel the tank and keep moving every morning. So I think that's really great.
And, Mike just emphasized it doesn't take a lot. It's just some drops of inspiration that can make that change. And before we conclude this episode, we've worked on a new segment that we thought would help the caregivers and patients who are listening to us today. Mike?
So in this season of Thriving While Aching, we've decided to review each episode with a list of tools that family caregivers can use that are related to the episode itself. And in this episode, you're going to be able to find all the links to the tools I'm referencing in a toolkit that we'll be launching on the website. So as we heard with Marilyn and Joel, it is so important that we keep an open mind as we evolve and as our situation evolves. And one of the ways that Marilyn was able to stay, I think, so on top of that was opening up her mind in terms of what her community looked like, really exploring where that connection comes from and where her community now resides. Really understanding what's going on in the community can be difficult when there isn't an easy place to start that process. So a couple ways that caregivers can really tackle this challenge is by just exploring the social avenues that are available to them, like Facebook. Facebook communities is a great way to engage with the community around them and to discover new avenues in which they can explore that connection that they lost when they lost some of that independence. Another really great tool to think about for family caregivers in relation to Marilyn and Joel's story are this idea of identity revolution, or evolution, I should say. For Marilyn, finding inspiration in her community was a big part of her mental wellness and staying on top of things and continuing to move forward. One of the ways family caregivers can do that is through YouTube. So discovering stories, hearing other people's journeys, seeing what other folks are doing to combat sort of the isolation and the change of identity that they're facing. YouTube can be a great place for that inspiration and a great place for family caregivers to identify what else is going on around them.
We hope that you found this episode inspiring. We want to thank Marilyn for sharing her experience and insight, and we hope our discussion will help shed a light on the important role of caregivers in patients' journeys. And of course, we want to thank you, our listeners. We believe that the journey of caregiving is as unique as each person it touches, and we are inspired by our guests, who are such marvelous examples of helping their loved ones thrive. We encourage you to keep the conversation going, sharing your experience and questions with us by reaching out at podcasts@ghlf.org and be a part of our thriving community. Be sure to check out the toolkit for caregivers that Mike has shared at the end of each episode. For more enriching content and resources, visit the show page at ghlf.org/listen. This podcast is made possible with support from Kenview, sponsor of the Global Healthy Living Foundation. Until next time, may you and your loved ones thrive with unwavering strength and grace.
Be inspired, supported, and empowered. This is the Global Healthy Living Foundation Podcast Network.